What's going on, guys? Eric here, and in this project we'll be making custom cut vinyl decals like this one using your Silhouette Cameo and Silhouette Cameo 3. At the end of the video I'll talk to you about how much it costs to make these kinds of decals, about how long it took to make them, and how much you might be able to sell them for to make a little money on the side, or if you wanted to start a little bit business selling decal stickers on your own. But before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to also hit that little bell notification so you get notices whenever I post new content to the channel. I've got a bunch of projects in the works and I'd love to share them with you. Alright guys, so before we get started, let's go over some of the items that you're going to be needing to complete this particular project. So first and foremost, you're going to need to have some sort of computer in order to do the design and linking up with your Silhouette Cameo. On this computer here, it's just a PC. You can see then also for my computer program, I'm going to be using, or I am using, Silhouette Studio. I happen to be using Designer Edition. After that, you're going to need, of course, to have your Silhouette Cameo. This is mine right now. It's a Silhouette Cameo 3. I wrapped it in rose gold chrome, if you're wondering why the lid is that color. To make all these different kinds of stickers and decals, you're going to, of course, need some vinyl. Alright, so this is just a strip of gloss white Decal 651. You can pick whichever vinyl that you like to use or prefer to use. I like Decal 651. It's just a relatively inexpensive and easy to use. If you're using your Silhouette Cameo, you'll probably want a cutting mat. This is just a cutting mat that I got off of Amazon. I believe the brand is Nikapa. It works with Silhouette Cameo. You'll want something to do weeding, as far as weeding out excess vinyl. I happen to have, and I like to use, an X-Acto knife because I can cut the vinyl if I need to while I'm weeding, and with the sharp point of the X-Acto knife I can poke small and fine pieces out of there. You may also want something to cut your vinyl sheets to size, and so you can see I have on my counter here, this is actually a cutting mat to protect my countertop so I can cut directly onto that. And I have this straight edge cutter here. Put it on and you just slide that off, cuts it. And if I need, I have a straight edge and a ruler here where I can just manually align and cut that. So those are the basics that you'll need. Again, a laptop or at least a computer, the program, your cutting machine, vinyl, and a cutting mat if that's what you're going to be using. You can also do it without it, but for this project we'll be using cutting mat and a couple of other ancillary tools that may be helpful. Alright, so with that, let's get to the how-to portion of the video. Alright guys, and so to start this project you'll want to open up your Silhouette Studio. I happen to be using Designer Edition, and you can see here in the center of my virtual cutting mat, let me turn off the grid, is the finalized product that I want to create. And then off to the left is the image that I started with. And so in order to make this particular image or decal, or create that, you'll start off with this image, and you'll want to make this into an image that is traceable and cuttable by your Silhouette Cameo, meaning you'll have to trace it. For right now it is just a JPEG image, and so in order to trace it into a file or an object that your cutter can see and cut, you want to trace it out by going to your trace panel, and then the trace window, click the select the trace area. That'll convert your mouse cursor from an arrow to crosshairs, and you'll want to put basically this gray box over the area you want traced, basically all the black part of this image. Now you'll see that once I've let my mouse button go, it highlighted every part that can be traced in yellow, and that's saying that this is what it sees as traceable, and that's what it will trace when you tell it to do so. Now that it's got everything that I can tell that I want, I'm going to go to trace the entire image so that it gets not just the outer edges, but also the edges on the inside of the image itself as well. So I'm going to hit that, and it looks like it did nothing, but what it did, you may be able to see red lines around the edge of the black that wasn't there before, and that tells me it's traced. So I can move the image away, excuse me, move this just off the way. And here's the image that it did trace. Now to make it easier to see, I'm going to go ahead and just color it in, go to my color palette, and just go with black, just so it makes it nice and easy. I'm going to throw that right into the center of my mat just to get it out of the way. Now the next thing I want to do is create my circles to go around it, because that's part of the decal that I want to cut out and put around this particular image. It'll also be the frame, if you will, for the words that will go around it. In order to do those circles, what you want to do is go to your drawing tools, and you'll see that off to the left, and then go to the ellipse. Select Draw an Ellipse. Now, that will also, when you go off of that, it'll convert your mouse back to a crosshair. And what you'll want to do is, if you just try to draw a circle now, it's going to be in an ellipse or an oval type of shape. You can try to make a perfect circle this way, but you're probably going to spend more time and get frustrated by doing so than if you do it by holding down your shift button and then continue to hold your shift button, click, and then draw your circle that way. By holding your shift button, it creates a perfect circle. This also works for making a square versus a rectangle and the other functions under the drawing tools. All right, now that I've got that done, I want to convert my mouse back to this regular select function so that it does not draw another circle. And so now I have one circle that I know is going to be just big enough to fit this. I might make it a little bit smaller here. And I'm going to center that around that. That's pretty good. All right, so now in order to make a band like this, because right now it's just one singular line, what I want to do is go to my offset function and click that and offset it, and you can see it took this and bumped out another circle. I want to make that slightly bigger, so I'm going to make that to 2 or 0.2 so that the band is a little bit thicker. And now what I'm going to do is, if I try to color this now, what will happen is the whole circle will be filled in with black, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to highlight the two circles, and I'm going to right click, which brings up this menu here, and I'm going to convert it or make it into a compound path. So now that when I try to color it, it just colors that. And basically what it is, took the two circles and made it into one item or object, if you will. So now that I have that set, I'm just going to center the two here, and then so that now I have it all set and ready to go in the middle. And then the last part to do this is to create your text that goes around. So I'll just go to your text function here on the left, and then I go open the text menu or text style menu, and I want to select Star Jedi, which I found online and downloaded, and then click on here and then type in your text. And then I'm going to type in Clan Mudhorn. All right, so now that I've got that in, I'm just going to select all my text here, just so it's easier to see, color it black. And then in order to make it, see it's straight across, in order to make it do a swoop around the circle here, double click it so you have the green box around it, and then this little circle with a crosshair on it. And then you'll want to touch this circle crosshair to the outer line of the circle or the object you want it to basically hug against. And then you can maneuver it around on this, try to keep it on it, because if you go too far off, it snaps off of it. So you want to snap it back onto it and then just adjust as you need to. One trick or hack that I learned to try to make it more even, meaning that the C and the N, the bottom of them are as level as they can be, is to go back to my page setup, go to my grid tab, and turn on my grid. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see. And so now you can see that the N compared to this light green line right here is that amount of distance, and the C is slightly less, so I'm just going to move it up a little bit, and that to me looks a little bit more even. So that's perfect as far as my eye can tell. At least I'm good with that, so I know that the C and the N are relatively level horizontally. But what I don't want is these two, the words butted up right onto the circle itself. So if you notice right here, this kind of bar with a little, looks like a tab. So I'm going to grab that tab, which is a slider bar, and then you can move it up or down along that bar, and you can see what it's doing with letters. It's moving it up or down along the image that it's basically snapped to right now. So that to me looks about good. Off of that, I don't want it too far off, but I don't want it too close. Now, what I did notice zoomed in is that the L and A are kind of, the A is cutting into the L here. And if you leave it like that, that's fine. But what's going to happen is all the red lines in here, if I take out the colors for this, so no fill. Oops, I didn't do it. But anyway, what's going to happen is when it cuts, it's going to cut there and it's going to cut here. And if you weed out accidentally, that will peel that out. So what you'll want to do is, or what I like to do is, select just the object. Now I clicked out and then clicked again, so that's just a regular object-like box around it. And then I hit the welds selected shapes into one shape. And so what happens was it welded the L and the A together, so the lines in between are now gone, and the L and A are one shape, as you can see by the box that's surrounding it. But what it also did was created individual boxes for each letter. You can leave it like that if you want to, and that's fine, but what I like to do is create it as one object. So click out, hold your shift button, and then select each of these individual letters, just like this, and then I like to group them. Now they're one object versus multiple objects, and then if you need to move it around, it's much easier to do. All right, so that's the top part. Now we want to do this bottom part here. So we're going to do the same thing, but it's slightly different, a little bit more tricky, if you will. And so I'm going to type in, actually go back to my text style menu, select Star Jedi, and then click that, and then I'm going to type in, this is the way. Missed it right there, so S. All right, now I'm going to select it all, and then color it black just so it's easier to see. All right, so now that I've got that, what I want to do is I want to move it just like I did with the Clan Mudhorn. But if I try to do it like I did Clan Mudhorn, you see what it does here. It makes it upside down. And you have to pick which line it's going to snap to, this outer one here or this inner one. The way to do this, though, to get it to go like I have it over here, is you'll have to bring it on the inside. You can see it's trying to snap to the image there, but what I want is to grab it onto here. All right, so, but right now I'm on the inner circle. I want to be on the outer circle, so just like that. I want to make it about even like that. And then kind of the same thing, I'll zoom in a little bit to make it easier to see. I can grab this slider bar and then move it out to about there. That looks about the same as the part on the top. And then I can look here to see if I'm about level where the tip of the T intersects the gray line and where the tip of the Y does. The T is slightly higher, so I'm going to move it down just a hair, moving the Y up just a hair, and to me that looks about level. In this case, I'm looking at it, none of the letters are intersecting each other, so I'm good with that. So I'm just going to select it, right click it, I'm just going to convert that to a path. That way it's one singular object, and it's ready to go. So guys, now this image is practically ready to go for cutting. You can send it, you can hit your send function, and then right now you can see that it's going to cut everything that's highlighted in red here. But what I like to do before doing that is, so I don't accidentally mess it up, I like to highlight all my items and then I group it. Now it's one object versus multiple objects, kind of loosely tacked together, if you will. The last thing that I like to do is, since I'm going to be doing this as a car decal, what I can do is, I don't like to make them bigger than about 5 inches square, because then it just gets pretty obtrusive unless you're making a large decal to go, say, on the back of on the back windshield, for example, or a back side window. Since I want a smaller one, what I like to do is I like the locked aspect ratio, so that if I change one aspect height or width, the opposite aspect changes in size proportionately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the biggest one, which is this 8.69, and just change that to 5. Hit enter, and you can see it changed the shape and size. So now it's 5 inches high, and then the proportionate and according width size is 4.594 inches. All right, and so this is ready for cutting. What I like to do then next is place this on my virtual cutting mat where I'm going to load my vinyl onto, and then get it ready for cutting. And so the next step will be to send it to your cutting mat. And so if you go to hit send, you'll see that the item is highlighted and I have it on regular cut. Now, if it's not, if it looks like kind of a big mess, something like this, check to see if it says cut edge or what one of these items here might be saying. I like to just use cut, and then you can see that it's going to cut all around, but it will intersect here versus the outer edges. And typically this is the standard or default that I like to use. Now, tool 1 is my auto blade, which I do have set up, and then tool 2 is my ratchet blade, which I have set up. If I wanted to use my ratchet blade, I would just open a tool 2 menu. By selecting that, I would highlight my object I want to be cut, and then just select cut or cut edge, and then you can see now that it's blue, highlighted in blue, and I know it's going to cut that with my tool number 2 because of the coloring. Before you send this to cut, though, what you'll want to do is, 1, make sure your cutting mat is loaded with the vinyl in the place that you're going to be sending it to on your virtual cutting mat, but 2, that your settings are set up correctly. Now for this, I'm going to be using Vivid Vinyl, Craft Vinyl, their Deco 65 series. It's a metallic silver chrome almost. And I do know that after messing with it for a little bit, that the default settings that Silhouette Studio comes with for vinyl glossy work just fine for it. And so I want to make sure that my material is set to vinyl glossy, that I'm going to be cutting and not sketching, and that I have the correct tool set, which is going to be my ratchet blade and not a deep cut blade or the auto blade. Or in this case, auto blade won't work for this, just the deep cut blade or ratchet blade, which I have ratchet blade. If you're going to use a ratchet blade, I would recommend making sure that the blade depth is set to what the settings are for vinyl, in this case vinyl glossy, which is a depth of 1. And then again, vinyl glossy default settings, depth of 1, force of 10, speed of 5, which I found works perfectly fine for the type of vinyl that I'm going to be using. The next thing to do before sending it to your Silhouette cutting machine is to make sure that your cutting machine is ready, your Cameo is ready, which you can see mine is. I have mine connected via Bluetooth. If it wasn't ready, it would say unavailable or something other than ready. And then when you are ready to cut, you've got your vinyl loaded to the cutting mat and the cutting mat loaded into your Cameo, you would just simply hit send. If you wanted to first, to make sure that your settings are correct, you can hit this test button, which will put a square and a triangle right around this area here. And then you can try test weeding that to see if the force, speed, and depth are correct for the vinyl that you're using. Alright guys, so all you got to do is hit send and then let your machine do its thing. Alright guys, and so you can see I've got my cutting mat loaded up with the vinyl in place where I'm going to be cut it. As you saw in Silhouette Studio, I had it lined up, the image lined up where I have my vinyl on my cutting mat. So I'm going to go ahead and hit send to my Cameo. I'm going to be using just my tool 2, my ratchet blade, which I have set up there. And I'm going to go ahead and let my Silhouette Cameo 3 do its thing. Alright guys, and so you can see that I've finished, or my machine has finished cutting the decal itself, and I've taken it off of its cutting mat, and I'm going to get ready to weed out the excess vinyl, which is the next step in getting a decal ready. So with this one, I can just peel off this excess on the outside here. Now be careful when you start peeling and weeding off excess like this to make sure that you don't peel off anything that didn't quite cut through, or sometimes the vinyl, even if it did cut through, so will sometimes stick with the vinyl as you're weeding it, like it was doing there. What I like to do is I like to have a X-Acto knife or a knife of some sort ready so I can cut as I need to on the go, but I also like the point of the knife to be able to weed out small items like this inner part of the A, for example. So continue to do that. Just do it carefully, take your time so you don't ruin the project that you just made. And with this craft vinyl, be sure that as you peel it, the sticky part doesn't hit back anywhere onto the decal itself. So I'm going to go ahead and weed out the inner parts of the D, and the O, this R, this A. Alright, get rid of that. Toss out my trash can over the side here. Alright, I'm going to pull out this center circle piece here. Get that started. Start to weed this out here, just like that. Pop that down. And get rid of that last piece there. And that is a decal that is ready to go. All it just needs to Next is to put your transfer paper or transfer tape, which I have a piece here, which is super simple. All you would have to do is put your transfer tape, peel off your transfer tape from its backing, or transfer paper from its backing, and then basically you would apply it over the decal itself, just like this. And then your decal is ready to go as far as being applied to whatever surface you're going to put it on. Alright guys, so now that I've shown you how to design and make and then cut and weed out your custom vinyl decals, let's talk a little bit about how much this might cost you to do these kinds of projects here. So I'll tell you right off the bat that making custom decals small enough to fit on like car windows, for example, are very, very inexpensive in terms of just material costs alone. I was doing some calculations. I bought previously just from Amazon, say for example, a 1 foot by 6 foot roll of vinyl for $7. And if I did the per square inch calculations out of that, it turned out to be less than 1 cent per square inch utilized. It was something like 0.0097 cents per square inch. So you can imagine that's fairly inexpensive. You can make a decal for pennies on the dollar, really, if you're speaking only in material costs alone for the vinyl. So for example, this one that we designed and made in the how-to video is roughly I used up 5 by 5 inches square, so 25 square inches roughly to make this particular decal. And at a penny per square inch, we're talking 25 square inches, so you're talking 25 cents to make this decal. Now, that is super cheap when you're looking at just that one particular factor. Other things you're going to have to consider as far as making this kind of a decal or decals are the time involved in making it, to include your design time. If you are designing something from scratch, kind of like what we did here, where you have to find an image or create an image, do text, arrange everything, put it together. But you saw that once I had everything kind of in my mind already and laid out, it took only about less than 10 minutes to make the actual design. Then you got to consider costs in terms of time of allowing your machine to cut, which took about maybe a minute or so, and then weeding out the vinyl and then applying transfer tape to it. And then transfer tape is another small cost that you'll have to consider into there. So what would you be able to then charge to make all that up in terms of if you wanted to sell these to, as a business, for example, something like this, a 5 by 5 square inch decal vinyl, I typically I would sell for around $5 to $6 roughly. And so you could see that it would cost me 25 cents in material costs, and I'm selling it for $5. So my profit before any other expenses are accounted for is $4.75. Now, is it worth it for that? At least to me, if I'm just making the one, doing the time to design, weed, and everything else, it's not that bad. But if you're going to be doing it on a large scale, you'll have to take that into consideration as far as how much it would cost you and what you might want to sell the decals for. If you go on any vendor site like Amazon, eBay, other websites that sell decals and stickers, you might want to take a look at those to see what they're selling those for, to kind of give you an idea of how much you might be able to sell like a single color sticker, or one with just words and text, or more complex types of decals. One where the vinyl is kind of a specialty vinyl, to kind of give you an idea of how to do that. So really it depends on, again, your cost of materials is one factor, but then you got to factor in other things like your time and other expenses. So for example, overhead as far as your utilities and things like that. Are you going to factor that in as part of your time? Anyway, so something to consider, but I hope you found that this video to be informative and instructive, maybe entertaining to some degree. And if you did, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And also hit the little bell button to get notifications for whenever I post new content to the channel. As I said at the beginning of the video, I'm working on a bunch of different projects, going to be videoing those, and hope to get those out soon. And of course, I'd love to share them with you. So when you have that bell button hit and you're subscribed, you'll get notifications whenever I post new content to the channel. Thanks guys for all your support, and have a great day.